Hi, I'm Judy Griffin with Aroma Health Texas, and today we're going to do a blend that the Egyptians used that was like their Chanel number 5. And Mark Strickland is going to help me. He's going to grind while I talk. In Egypt, aromas promoted the intelligence of the heart, what they called the heart. And without scent, our spirit starves. And actually, the sense of smell developed in the womb. It's the only one of our senses that developed in the womb. And it deals with memories and emotions and empathy. So, as we make our blend, we'll keep that in mind. This is a Mendesian blend. Mendes was a city in Egypt that was known all over the world at that time for their special blends, and everybody liked them because they were strong and they were spicy. They might be a little musky, but they lasted a long time. And today, or since actually alcohol has been developed, the perfumes are just flavored alcohol. This is, we're going to get our hands into it, and it's really more of a spectacular experience, and I want you to share it. So the first thing they would always do was use myrrh. They used a huge amount of myrrh. They used it for embalming. They used it for temple stuff. They used it for, it was an antifungal and antibacterial, so it was very important for them. It protected their skin from the sun, and it was in all of their blends. They imported it from the Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. They also used frankincense, which I don't have today because we're going to use something else. Here we go. Grind away. Frankincense was also very important, and I don't know if it was as expensive then as it is now, but it would have been used more with royalty and temple work. The people in frankincense came from the land of Punt, which we believe is Somalia. So instead, they would use myrrh and possibly benzoin styrax, which was also a favorite. And benzoin, they all come from trees. They're all what we'd use as low notes. What I like about the benzoin styrax is that it smells like vanilla. So you have a light vanilla scent, and it brings out more and more of the different flavors. Okay. It's noisy here. Benzoin styrax, it worked on arthritis, it worked on neurological symptoms and wounds especially, and it had antibacterial and antifungal properties also. The Egyptians, I love them, they were just it was so important to them to have a germ-free society and to be as clean as possible that they used things like myrrh. Here's a big piece of myrrh. They could use a bigger piece, or styrax, or even frankincense, and they would light it and use it as incense and clean their air. Does that smell good? You like it?
I do.
He's already a believer. When you get through, you get to work on styrax.
This is going to take a minute.
You don't have to get it to a powder, but you do need to show the people what you got here. There can be some little chunks in there. We're going to steep this, immerse this in an olive oil blend. The Egyptians used a lot of olive oil, and it was so good for their skin. And today in our blend, we're also going to use some honey. Olive oil hydrates the skin, and honey brings in the moisture. So the two of them made a great blend. And for the skin, everything they did was for health, everything. Okay.
Good.
Good. Did you show it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Get that one. If you need more, I've got more. Okay. So we will steep our blend for 3 weeks. If you go to 4 weeks, some of the materials can start breaking down a little bit. And the Egyptians might have heated them in the sun, but not very hot. I would call it warming it. Have a nice warm blend. And they had them in heavy pots like alabaster clay, and they had to have a very tight fitting lid, and they would just leave them out in the sun. So that helps to know all these little extra things. We're going to be using cinnamon, and the Egyptians like to use the most pungent scents towards the last. And cinnamon will definitely dominate any blend that you have. And the Egyptians loved cinnamon because they love the smell of it. They love the strong sense that it brought circulation and energy moving in their body. And they would use other spices. They love spices. They would use cloves, and we have cloves here. We're just going to use a little bit of cloves because we want subtle hints of some of these spices. They loved cardamom. Cleopatra loved cardamom. They also used resins like cedar wood, and it was the actual wood, not an essential oil, or pine. And then if you want to get into a special perfume, more for romance, they would have their blue lotus and their jasmine and rose in there. They used moringa oil or castor oil. The moringa oil was known in Egypt as balanos, and the regular people that weren't as important and like royalty, they would use castor oil because the cost of moringa was very high, and if they didn't find moringa, then they would definitely use olive oil. They might use a blend of those. And the moringa was used more for special perfumes. And I brought a little orange peel because they used things like that. And it doesn't have to be crushed, but this is the rind of a small orange. It doesn't have to be crushed, but just broken up enough to give a little hint and flavor of orange citrus in there. Well, you have to do the cinnamon next. Cinnamon comes, this is just how it comes off of trees, the cinnamon trees. And they use cassia a lot, and cassia, however you pronounce it, is just a different type of cinnamon. It's more potent smelling than cinnamon. And it's the bark that we use, and remember when we talked in some of the former videos that cinnamon bark is the most potent. It has the most antibacterial properties, and it can topically heal just about any wound or disease. And it comes off the trees just like this, where you can see it just rolls off, and they take it off in slices, very thin slices, and it just naturally rolls. I think that's just really cool. Can I go ahead and put the hint of clove in there? What I like about the Egyptians is they were so into being clean. You wouldn't think so, being such an ancient culture. But they actually invented toothpaste. They take mint leaves and rock salt and pepper, and they crush it all up, and they would make it into like a paste for the teeth. And other civilizations found they'd shave their heads a lot of times and wear wigs because they didn't want to have lice. And that was, something to be concerned about. All right, that's good. So, now, throw in our orange. I don't know if you want to beat that up, but it's better just to,
Rend it.
yeah. So, the next thing we're going to do is take this mixture. How's it smell? You like it? And we're going to put it in a container. I'm using glass so you can see it. And we're going to put it in a container. We're going to use 2/3 cup of oil, and we're using olive oil because it's very prevalent in our society also. It's always the very first cut virgin olive oil. But, what's interesting about the Egyptians is they found a really easy way to make olive oil. Without having the big presses and things like that. They had a big sack, and it was flexible, and they lined it with the muslin cloth to strain out the oil and not get all the pieces of olives. They took a mortar and pestle type product, and they took out of course, the olive seeds, and then they chopped it up, beat it up a little bit, and they put it in this big bag with the muslin thing. And at the top, they had 2 sticks that held it together at the top. And they used something called torsion to squeeze the olive oil out. And they would take one stick and pull it this way and the other one the other way. And by doing that, and I'm sure it was a strenuous process, but it was quick and easy, and it was very effective. Then they would strain it out with their muslin cloth. It would strain out where they just got the olive oil. First squeeze, it was wonderful, and they had lots of it. And olive oil became so well known and in demand in this old world there was, that as far away as Spain, they planted olive trees to keep up with the demand of olive oil. And that's interesting because right now, Spain produces more olive oil than even Italy. So he produces the most olive oil of the whole world. So here we've got a nice little brew. And we're going to put our olive oil in there, or moringa if you have moringa oil. The Mendesians were known all over the world for their perfumes, and they had all different varieties, but this is the basic of all their other perfumes came from this kind of basis, and they may have used frankincense along with benzoin styrax, depending on what was available, because all this stuff came in through ships or on the Silk Road. And then let's put in our honey. And these were heated, not boiled, but heated to about 149 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 65 degrees Celsius. I can smell it. It's very nice. And you're going to have to use a little shaking to get it to mix. And after you steep it or leave it for 3 weeks, you're going to have to come maybe once or twice a day and just give it a gentle roll. If you shake it all the time, or too often or too hard, you're going to break down some of the delicate molecules of the scent. So we don't want to do that. It doesn't look too good right now, but we will use some kind of a strainer to strain all this out. You want a tight-fitting lid, very tight, not plastic. And you want some kind of a container, either clay, if you have clay, or if you have alabaster or some kind of stone, that could be good, but otherwise, just our plain old mason jars work the best. We want to keep this in a relatively cool place. In Texas, out in the sun, it's 100 and something degrees. That's not so good, but maybe the sunlight coming in from a window is good enough. And you want to keep it cool enough to where it, to the touch, it's warm but not hot. And that's what we're doing today. Now, this, when you strain it, it's a liquid. And what often the Mendesians did is they made a balm or a salve from it. So in order to do that, what they used, because they used all things from nature right then, they didn't really have an emulsifier, but they did have bees. They had their own beehives, just like how they had their own gardens and everything else that they were growing and making as much of their product right there as they could. So this is like a clump of beeswax, and you can grate it up with a cheese grater to a consistency of that. And you would need anywhere from 2 tablespoons to 3 tablespoons of this beeswax. Once it's been set for 3 weeks, which we just leave it and strained where you have no particulates in there, or very tiny, tiny ones if you do, then you can warm it up, warm, not hot, and you put your beeswax in there. I would melt the beeswax first and add it to a warm liquid of your Mendesian perfume. This doesn't look very attractive right now, but it smells great. And the beeswax will help emulsify it. Beeswax is not an emulsifier, but it will hold it, it will stabilize this, and it'll be kind of a soft balm. And if you wanted a harder balm, you would just add a tablespoon at a time of your beeswax. So instead of 2 tablespoons, then go to 3. Somewhere between 3 and 4, this is going to get pretty hard. You may not want it that hard, or you may want it that hard. The test is to press your finger into your balm to see how soft it is, and if that's what you want for your body, and you wear it. And you can also now scent this with other essential oils if you like. But you don't need to add more of your myrrh or your benzoin styrax or frankincense, but you could add cardamom or something floral if you like. They really like blue lotus, but that's more like specialty wear. This they wore every day. And again, you can add to it, you can put ginger in there. They use all kinds of different cedar wood and such. And make it special for you. So this is what we have to share with you today. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be back next week with more information. See you at Aroma Health Texas. Bye-bye.